Today we'll take frankincense, very similar to myrrh. The process of getting myrrh and the process of getting frankincense are very, very similar as well. This also comes from the boswellia tree. Do I have the pronunciation right? You have to say yes because you don't know it. If you don't know it, then I've got it right. There must be the smart ones online who actually know it, and they don't have a voice now, so it's okay. So it comes from the boswellia tree, which is basically from Africa, Middle East, and also India. One of the reasons it would be in India also is because the first place where it was actually found was in Oman. And Oman had a very close trade relationship with India, very ancient trade relationship with India. And so most probably it's from there as well. So it's once again, it's by cutting the tree and the raisin, but this time it's a white kind of milky liquid that actually comes out, and that's made into frankincense. It's a very medicinal herb as well. It heals arthritis. It's used, of course, also for healing osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Have I got those pronunciations right? Praise God. It also improves the gut functions of the inflammatory gut diseases that are there. Those with chronic diarrhea are also given frankincense. And now all of these, they say that there's still studies to be done to be able to understand how much of an impact it is. But it is definitely a blood thinner. So those who are pregnant, they say, never have anything to do with frankincense. No, not smelling it. Don't swallow it. But it's not apparently good for those who are pregnant. It can be very, very it can be very dangerous as well. But it's supposed to help improve asthma, mouth sores. It's also supposed to help fight cancer. Now these are all things, don't go home now and start swallowing up a lot of the incense or come and steal what's there inside the sacristy. At one point they would say that the sacristans and the altar boys loved going in and having a sip of the wine, the mass wine that would be there. Not here in this church. Our children are very, very good. So first of all, there's barely any space for them to hide and do it because there's no space inside it. But now when I speak about frankincense, I hope that no one will go inside and start stealing and saying, let's go and pop a few of them into us, because we love popping pills, don't we? Any kind of medication, any kind of vitamin B, vitamin D, multivitamins, all the vitamins together, put it into our body. Ultimately, when they give us any medication, nothing works because we have too many vitamins inside. So this is also a medicinal herb as well. It is used for medication, but frankincense, far more than myrrh, is something used in worship. Far more than myrrh. Myrrh was used at one point, it was used to on dead bodies, to embalm dead bodies. But frankincense was always used as incense that would be offered in worship. And that is why in Somaliland, apparently it is a very big business in Somaliland. It's one of the African countries, and usually Rome gets all its frankincense from Somaliland. And it's all used for worship, because incensing itself is a symbolic act of prayers being raised up. That is what incensing is during the Eucharist and during our liturgy. Incensing is a symbolic act of all the prayers being raised up as a beautiful fragrance to God. But it was always used as from the ancient times, something that was meant only for holy things. We read in Exodus chapter 30. Exodus chapter 30, verse 34 onwards. Exodus 30. Verse 34 onwards. So the Lord said to Moses, "Take sweet spices And the other 2 and 3, I find it very difficult to pronounce. And the stacte and onika and the galbanum. Am I right? Yeah, good. Sweet spices with the pure frankincense, an equal part of which, and then continue, and make an incense blended as by the perfumer, seasoned with salt, pure and holy. Pure and holy. It was always meant to be holy. And you shall beat some of it into powder and put part of it before the covenant in the tent of meeting, where I shall meet with you. It shall be for you most holy. It's meant to be most holy. What is offered up in that frankincense that is mixed with all of these? It's offered as something that is holy. And what is we read also in I think it's Exodus 30 verse 38. When you make incense according to this composition, you shall not make it for yourself. That is verse 37. You shall not make it for yourself. That is, don't turn it into perfume. You shall not make it for yourself. Now, I want to tell you one thing. Now, there are going to be some of us who listen to all this, and then you go home and you'll chuck out all your incense perfume, your frankincense perfume, and say it's said in the Old Testament we are not supposed to use it. No, there's an understanding of what it means. What God is saying is it is meant for. It is a prayer. It is a prayer, and that is why he says, "You shall not make it for yourselves. It shall be regarded by you as holy to the Lord." It is meant to be holy to the Lord. And then we go into 38. Whoever makes any like it to use as perfume shall be cut off from the people. So what is God saying? This is something that it's a combination. Who has given? God himself. I'm sure there'll be many of you who will be very tempted to find this amazing combination. So many perfumers who put perfume together, right? And you spray it all over. You want the best perfume with the best scent. What are those names? Devil, poison. Amazing, isn't it? All those perfumes have such amazing names. Devil, perfume, poison ivy. Yeah. Sorry, Ivy. Where's Ivy? Ivy was sitting somewhere there. Where's she? Ivy's there, yeah. Poison ivy. She isn't poison, right, Gilbert? No. No family problems here. So, we have God putting together. He's told Moses, these are the things you put all together, and then you offer it, and frankincense with that. And this incense shall be offered. You shall not use it for yourself. Why? What does that mean? It means God is saying this thing is supposed to be holy. So that's the intention, that this is supposed to be holy. Frankincense was used as something that is holy. It is used as a time of worship. It is used as an offertory. In Leviticus chapter 24, verse 6 and 7. Leviticus chapter 24, verse 6 and 7. You shall place them in 2 rows. This is when there's a bread offering being offered in the tabernacle. And it said, you shall take choice flour, bake 12 loaves of it, 2/10 of the ephah shall be in each loaf. You shall place them in 2 rows, 6 in a row. On the table of pure gold, you shall put pure frankincense with each row to be a token offering for the bread as an offering by fire to the Lord. So the frankincense had a very important role. It was always there. We read once again in Leviticus chapter 2, verses 2 onwards. Leviticus chapter 2, verses 2 onwards. Leviticus 2:2. Okay, can you read that? After taking, you read that. I said you read that. You've got to read it in a better way. You know, this sounds like how they all read during, or they spoke to each other when the Tower of Babel came down. And that's how it sounds. So, we're trying to make an impression to the outer world. They're all online. They actually are very impressed by you. Let's fake it and do it well. So, after taking from it a handful of the choice flour and oil with all its frankincense, the priest shall turn this token portion into smoke on the altar, an offering by fire of pleasing odor to the Lord. It's an offering by fire. So you had earlier an offering of the bread and frankincense playing a role in that. The offering by fire. We read once again in Leviticus chapter 2, so this was basically the grain offering. You have in Leviticus 2 verse 15, you will have the meat offering. You shall add oil to it and lay frankincense on it. It is a grain offering, and the priest shall take a token portion of it into smoke, some of the coarse grain and oil with all its frankincense. It is an offering by fire to the Lord. So this was a grain offering. There's the meat offering. In all these offerings, the bread offering, it was always frankincense that was used. But we read in Leviticus 5:11. Leviticus 5:11. But if you cannot afford 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, you shall bring as your offering for the sin that you have committed 1/10 of an ephah of choice flour for a sin offering. So this is a sin offering. You shall not put oil on it or lay frankincense on it, for it is a sin offering. So the frankincense was used for a bread offering, it was used for a grain offering, it was used for a meat offering, but it was not used for a sin offering. It was not used for a sin offering. In Numbers chapter 5 verse 15. In the book of Numbers chapter 5 verse 15. Numbers 5 verse 15. He shall Then the man shall bring his wife to the priest. This is an offering in connection to the sin of an unfaithful wife. So it says, then the man shall bring his wife to the priest, and he shall bring the offering required for her, 1/10 of an ephah of barley flour. He shall pour no oil on it and put no frankincense on it, for it is a grain offering of jealousy, a grain offering of remembrance, bringing iniquity. So it was never used for sin offerings, but it was always used for grain offerings or meat offerings, because a meat offering and grain offering is basically something, fragrance that is being sent unto God, while sin and holiness are 2 totally different things. And that is why frankincense was always connected to holiness. It was always connected to holiness. It was always connected to what is being offered. The word frankincense itself comes from an old French expression that is frankincense. Where's Jean-Claude? Am I anywhere close to that pronunciation? Or are you laughing behind that mask? All our Mauritian brethren here. Well, it basically means pure, right? That's what franc means, pure. And the incense basically means burn, to burn. So it is that which is pure is burnt and offered. It is offered. That which is pure, so they basically call it as that of the highest quality incense is called frankincense. The highest quality incense is called frankincense. The purest quality incense. And we use it in worship because it is a prayer, the purest quality of prayer. That is what was offered to Jesus by the king. Frankincense was offered, the purest quality of prayer was offered to the baby Jesus. That is what we are called to offer as well. To offer the purest quality of prayer. Not diluting prayer and making prayer an impure prayer being offered unto the Lord. What we offer and what we should be offering in prayer is the purest quality of prayer. Because incense in worship is the purest quality. Frankincense in worship is the purest quality of incense. And what we offer to God always has to be the purest quality of prayer. And very often we can end up being people who offer prayers. Prayers is not something that's strange to us. We all pray, don't we? That's our problem. We all pray. It's so common that we've been offering prayers and offering prayers and offering prayers and wonder what kind of prayers we've been offering. Because prayer has to be of the purest kind. With frankincense, there are times when frankincense is actually affected. Even the tree frankincense is affected in two ways. And we'll connect that both ways to the kind of prayers we end up making as well. There are times when frankincense tree, they say now the population of the frankincense tree is declining. And why is it declining? Because there is an overkill, there's an overuse of frankincense or an overproduction of frankincense so that they can make a profit. So you have Somaliland, and in Somaliland, I was listening to a little documentary, and the minister was saying how usually for the frankincense tree, they are supposed to tap it only 2 times a year, or maximum 3 times a year. But now what they've been doing is, because of the profits they need to make, and these are very poor farmers, because of the profit they need to make, they're tapping it all the year round. So she was speaking about this, the forest minister was speaking about it, and she says the trees germinate only 16% now. Earlier, they would germinate 80%. Now, because they needed profit, they have been doing it all the year round. Basically abusing that tree just to get worldly wealth. How often have we made prayer impure by trying to get worldly profits from it? How often have we made prayer impure by trying to get worldly profits from it? Very often our prayers are all about what I can get. When things don't go right with us, or there's a tragedy, or there's a painful experience for you. You might be an everyday churchgoer. You might be a person who spends a lot of time praying. You might be a person who does a lot of ministry. You might be a priest. And you've prayed for so long, and when tragedy strikes, what is our first response? Usually, what is our first response? One thing I get very often is, Father, what did I do wrong that God did this to me? Very often they'll come praying, asking, Father, pray, can you tell me where or what did I do wrong? Another this thing is, what did my ancestors do wrong? So please let me know what my ancestors did wrong. I don't know what you did wrong. Then how am I going to know what your ancestors did wrong? It's always there, Father, just tell me what my ancestors did wrong or what I did wrong. Or then we go to God and we ask, why? Haven't you asked why? Haven't you asked why with the second part of that statement? Why, Lord? How much I prayed. Haven't you done that? How much I've prayed. How much time I've spent in prayer. How passionate I was in that prayer. Because in today's morning's and today's gospel passage, and in the morning's homily, that's what I spoke about. Faith that amazes God. And we should have faith that amazes God. And so I passionately pray with faith that's supposed to amaze God. And then God doesn't seem to be amazed. I so passionately prayed, why, God? Very often our prayers can be lined and be flavored with a lot of worldliness in it. What is prayer? Prayer is a relationship with God. Prayer always comes forth from a relationship with God. Prayer is not about asking a lot of things and receiving a lot of things, or how powerful the God of how powerful God is in Lourdes, or how less powerful He is in Holy Family. Isn't that what we make Him ultimately? You go to that service. You go to Father Michael's service. There's a healing mass. Every Sunday evening, there's a healing mass. Oh, there's so much happening over there. There's so much healing taking place. You've got to go there. And you pray there. And you're passionately praying over there. I'm not saying there are different people who are gifted differently. But I'm not going to pray somewhere where my prayer is lined and flavored with worldly attributes. Because that's not a prayer anymore. The letter of St. James, chapter 4, verse 2 and 3 says, letter of St. James, chapter 4, verse 2 and 3. Letter of St. James, chapter 4, verse 2 and 3. Can we read that?
You want something and look at the outward, so you commit murder.
I don't think that's y'all, right? No, that's not for you, okay. Though hatred is murder, but do you have hatred? Okay, then you can, you can embrace that as well. Second one, and you covet. So you engage in disputes and conflicts. How many times we've told the Lord, Lord, I'm praying and praying, my part of the property, my brother is not giving it to me, it's my share. Give me justice. How many times we've said, and it's not only that, you're at work. When you're at work and you think to yourself, there's someone, let's take off you, let's take me, Father Michael. I'm a nice priest. The sound goes off at all different times during today's, I was just telling them, it's amazing, 2-3 times the sound on this microphone gets cut off exactly at that consecration time. It's really amazing. Exactly when I'll take the host to say the consecration prayer, that's exactly when it gets cut off. Today also, that's exactly when it got cut off. Now when I wanted it to get cut off, it's loud and clear. So I'm a nice priest? Good. Am I a kind of bishop candidate? Yeah, good. So Father Michael's working very hard, and he's doing well, and he's preaching to the people, and he's such a nice priest, he's such a loving priest. Even if you don't think that, I'll say it. He's a very loving priest, he's a very nice priest, and so I'm supposed to be made, and maybe there's a bishop possibility, and I don't think Archbishop Peter wants to hear this, but still, there's a bishop possibility, and who knows, maybe Father Des from Hampton Park gets it. Oh gosh. Lord, I work so hard for it. I've been doing so much for you. Why, Lord? In all our conflicts, in our engaging, you think that you're due for a promotion? Doesn't it hurt when you're due for a promotion and the other person gets it? Doesn't it hurt, David, when your law firm is there and you see someone passing your law firm and going to the other side and think, I'm better than that chap, you know? Well, it hurts, doesn't it? It always hurts. Yeah, and at times there's this battle and this dispute going on within. And so you covet something, cannot obtain it. You engage in disputes. You engage in conflicts. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and you do not receive because you ask wrongly in order to spend what you get on your pleasures. Your prayer is worldly. That's what the scripture is telling us. Your prayer is worldly. While prayer, we know, is supposed to be a relationship. The purity of prayer is when prayer is a relationship. And that is why when you have, even in the scriptures, you have people who are so deeply in a relationship with God. When the Blessed Mother is in a deep relationship with God, when she says, "Behold the handmaid of the Lord," it is a prayer that she is making. The Magnificat is a prayer that she is making. It is actually a conversation between her and her God. It is a relationship. The purity of prayer is always desecrated when we bring worldliness into that prayer. Sometimes we wake up to prayers only when we require something. Our intensity of prayer, doesn't it increase and decrease according to what situations we find ourselves in? You know, I'm losing my job. I've told this so many times before. My intensity of prayer always increased when it was my, no, not exam. I was even worse. There's one set who prays early during their preparation. There's one set that prays closer towards the exam. There's one set that prays during the exam. There's one set that prays when they're walking outside the examination hall. And then there's one set that prays on the day of the results. That's me. Well, I used to pray a lot. And then after getting the results, I'd come home and I have to show it to my parents. And then I'd be praying even more during that time. All our intensity, but isn't that true? Our intensity increases and decreases according to what we are going through. Then that's not a relationship. A relationship doesn't increase and decrease according to what you're feeling at that moment or what you want at that moment. A relationship is always on a high. And prayer comes from a relationship with God. That is why when the Blessed Mother at the wedding at Cana, when it is not time, she goes and asks Jesus. They don't have wine. How can she do that? Because her prayer wasn't just on the day of the wedding at Cana. Her prayer was already in her all the time, that relationship. And therefore, when she needed to, it didn't even seem like a big prayer. No, there wasn't a big explanation. This actually seems like a very, I don't want to say it, but it seems like a very arrogant mother. No, the way she can just go and say, they don't have wine. My time is not up. She doesn't even answer him. What does she say? She looks at the servants and says, do whatever he tells you to. That's it. She is so sure. Who can be so sure? Only one who is in a relationship can be so sure. It doesn't have to be a big prayer. It doesn't have to be a big novena. It doesn't have to be an amazingly contrived prayer. It just has to be a relationship. That's the purity of prayer. I'm not against structured prayer. I have a problem with structured prayers when we make it repetitive. The person who wrote that prayer, it comes from their relationship and their heart. Then we read it. St. Jude's novena. He is for the hopeless cases. We read it 9 times. It's supposed to be, when I learnt it, it was 9 hours, 9 times a day for 9 days. And then on the 9th day, you're supposed to get what you want. Oh, how many times I've done it. Praise God, He's merciful. But very often it turned into a repetitive prayer. It didn't come from the heart because it didn't come from a relationship. Prayer, if you have to keep it pure, has to come from a relationship. We read in Psalm 145, verse 18. Psalm 145, verse 18. Psalm 145, verse 18. Have you got it? Yes, read. The Lord is near to all who call on Him, to all who call on Him in truth, in the truth of that relationship itself. In the truth of the relationship, not a relationship that's a lie. If you see me today, and then you suddenly forget about me, and then 10 years later you say, oh, Father, I've missed you. I think that's a big fat lie. If you missed me, you would have made an effort in the last 10 years to try and find out where I am and to try to contact me. That's a big fat lie. There's no truth in that relationship. There's no truth in your words as well. When you call on Him in truth, in the truth of a relationship. We read about Moses, and that's why even yesterday I told you there's no one who actually captivates my imagination more in the Old Testament than Moses. I'm just so madly in love with that man. First of all, just thinking that he could lead them for 40 years. A set of grumblers. Father Michael Chadbolt was here for 20 years. And I think to myself sometimes, sitting in that presbytery, I think, 20 years, how on earth did he do it? Not because this parish is bad, but I don't think you can go on for 20 years with a set of grumblers like this. Not like this. I'm talking about Israel. They were the set of grumblers. And Moses went on, but it's so true. You ask any priest, it's a struggle, and especially as parish priests. And I've always admired parish priests from the time I was in the retreat center for this. It's so difficult to make everyone happy. There'll be one set that will be gloating over you. And then there'll be the other set who won't tell you, but will tell the whole wide world how bad you are. But Moses, all through that journey in the wilderness, that 40 years that he went through, how many prayers Moses has made. And you see his prayers don't seem to be dramatic ones. It's just a kind of a flow. It's not something where they need to say, Moses prayed. Moses just spoke to God. And that is why it's so casually written every time when the people do a sin and they are committing and God's anger is burning hot. What does Moses do? He'll go and stand right in between God and the people. Who can stand like that unless you share a relationship with them? It seemed like sometimes if you want to meet the priest or someone wants to meet me, they'll say, they'll see someone over there at the door and they'll say, can we meet? Father. And then that person will come and tell me, Father, they want to meet you. And then I'll say, okay, this is what you have to do. Then he goes and tells that person that is what they're going to do. Why? Because they believe this person in the center actually makes a difference. That's how Moses was. And Moses he was never afraid of telling. There's a time in the book of Exodus when God's anger is burning hot and he looks at God and he tells, if you let go of these people, everyone's going to laugh at you. The way he speaks to God, it shows so clearly that he's in a very deep relationship with God. That is prayer. That's the purity of prayer. when it comes out of a deep relationship with God, it's not a result of a result of what I want. It doesn't matter what I want. It doesn't matter what He gives me. It doesn't matter if I'm successful. It doesn't matter if I'm healthy. It doesn't matter, because I am in a relationship of prayer. I'm in a relationship of prayer. That is why the Song of Songs, how many of you have read the Song of Songs? Really? I mean, at least at one stage in your life, that was the only book that was interesting in the Bible. Especially for some of the boys, when we read it, if you read it in public, you cringe, because it speaks about her breasts were so beautiful, and you're actually at the lectern and you're reading the Song of Songs, and then it can be very embarrassing. He touched her breasts and her big breasts, and he touched it. It is a relationship between God and His people. It's a love relationship. It is the shallowness of our minds that doesn't understand such kind of a relationship. Because for us, it's all about sexuality. But it's a beautiful, take that Song of Songs and have a read. Have the deep relationship when God is in love with His people. And it's coming forth from there. And we will understand the depth of that relationship, the depth of that love. That is why so beautifully in John chapter 15, verse 15 onwards, that's why I read the gospel passage at the start. Jesus prays for His disciples. It's a beautiful prayer that actually comes out of a relationship. Are our prayers coming out of a relationship without any kind of worldliness in it? When we are sitting with God and we are one with God and we are offering that as an offertory, that is the frankincense we give. When we can offer a prayer that is not stained with the world. It doesn't matter if I die a beggar. It doesn't matter if I die in pain. It doesn't even matter if my own loved ones die in pain. But it's not going to shake my relationship with God. My intensity with God is not based on what He gives me. My intensity of prayer and my love for prayer is not based on what He provides for me, but it comes from my relationship with my God. That is frankincense. That is the offertory. These the frankincense tree. The second thing that happens with it is one of the reasons why it is dying out is because it's attacked by the longhorn beetle that eats it from the inside, and will destroy the tree. Something that's foreign to it, something that's not good for it, that's unhealthy for it, is what enters in, the longhorn beetle. How many times do we have the longhorn beetle in our prayers? Prayers made with deception. Prayers made with jealousy. Prayers made with pride and anger. Prayers made with bitterness in our heart. We have this longhorn beetle somewhere within, even as we are offering prayers. And it's eating within, and we are thinking that we are praying and praying and praying and praying. But it doesn't make an impact, because deep within, it is being eaten up. The evil that is there within us. Isaiah chapter 1 verse 15. Isaiah chapter 1 verse 15. Isaiah 1 verse 15. When you stretch out your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. Your hands are full of blood. Your heart is filled with jealousy. Your heart is filled with pride. Your heart is filled with bitterness. Your heart is filled with anger. How can prayer come from that heart? It ceases to be a prayer, because prayer is a relationship. So now when there's bitterness, everything that's unlike God is there within our heart. That longhorn beetle is there within our heart. Now the relationship is not there anymore. If the relationship is not there, there's no prayer. And that is why it says, you make many prayers, but I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. Jesus spoke about the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector in Luke chapter 18. The Pharisee who would kneel down and say, I'm not like the rest of the world. I'm not like that tax collector. He doesn't fast. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. How many times have we sat in church and looked around and said, oh, that person in church today? There's a person who once told me, who, not in this church. Any example is not from this church. But that person couldn't, when we were at the retreat, the person couldn't give peace during Mass. Found it so difficult to turn around and give peace. Because that person couldn't accept the other. And we at Mass. In the prayers we are offering. But it's good to ask ourselves, what kind of longhorn beetles are there within our heart today? And we are still busy offering prayers. I remember a person who came to the retreat center, a Hindu who was brought to the retreat center when I was in Mumbai. And he was brought by another Catholic. But didn't come for the retreat, just came for prayers. So it was, I think it was a Wednesday evening or a Thursday. Wednesday afternoon our retreat finishes, but Wednesday evening our retreat finishes. I think it was Wednesday afternoon or Thursday, but came and knocked at the door, and that's very surprising because people don't come during the retreat. So they came and they said, we just want prayers. And he said, this Catholic said, he's my business partner, and please can you pray for him? So I prayed for him, and it was very odd for someone to come like that, but I prayed for him. He had business issues, so I prayed for him. He went back, and that wasn't for the retreat. He just came for just that prayer. You know how it is for the Hindus. Sometimes they think that they just need to, they don't think the retreat is important. They just think it's like a God man. For them, they're God man, and he prays and everything will be okay. So he came for prayers. I prayed. He went back. I don't know what happened after that. But around 1 month afterwards, we had a convention in Mira Road, and that's one of the places. It's around 2 hours from where the retreat center is. And during the retreat, at the end of the retreat, I think it was when people were queuing up for prayers, and there was this man who came with a lot of gold on his hands. In India, they love wearing their gold. Even the males love wearing their gold. There's a man who has a whole full gold suit. There's a man who actually has a gold mask during COVID situation. He got a gold mask. Oh, you poor people. And so this chap's come with all his gold and his big gold chain and everything, and he came and he stood in front of me and he said, Prarthana karo. It means basically pray, okay? Pray for me. So I looked at him and I placed my hand and I prayed. And because the queue was there, I took off my hand barely after around 30 seconds or so. And then he looked at me and he said, Nahi, or prarthana karo. Basically means pray more, pray more. So I thought it was a person who is really interested in prayers. And I just prayed some more and left it. He said, no, pray more. And that is when I asked him why, and he told me, around 1 month ago, you prayed for my younger brother when he came to the retreat center. And his business was going through a lot of problems, but there was some money the government was supposed to give him, and he has got that huge sum that opened out three weeks after you said that prayer. I need to be bigger than my brother. It was so amusing because there's a big queue behind me. He's waiting to be prayed over. But the way he said it, I need to be bigger than my brother. A prayer that is lined with so much of jealousy. How much of our prayers are lined with jealousy, impurity, unholiness? With all of this, we're offering our prayers. Prayer is a relationship. We read in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 12. In 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 12. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 12. Read that? Yeah. For the eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, and his ears are open to Their prayer. One who's righteous is one in union with God, one who is sharing a relationship with God. About Saint Joseph, there's only one quality that's written. What is that? He was a righteous man. He was a righteous man. But all the saints, that is what is written, they were righteous people. And from there, their prayers were lifted up. Are we righteous enough? Because that's the offertory we give. That's the frankincense we give. Can we tune ourselves to be able to offer that kind of a frankincense? We are not people who haven't prayed before. We pray every day. If you don't pray, you wouldn't have been here. We pray every day. But is it the pure frankincense that was supposed to be offered to God? And that's what we ask ourselves. The people tried to take, the Greeks actually tried to take the frankincense tree to Greece. And there was a problem, and one of the Greek historians notes it down as well, because this frankincense tree actually, it kind of invites snakes. And the snakes actually sit inside the tree, or onto the tree. So, and he found out how the Arabs get rid of it. They smoke it. They smoke the snake out so that the snake doesn't be there, because they have to tap the tree. So they smoke it out. Smoke out the sin within us. Smoke out the evil within us. Go for confession. Smoke it all out. Get rid of it. And then tap on it. And let that frankincense be a beautiful offertory that you can give to the Lord. Or else we'll just cover it with prayer, but there's no burning coal within to actually bring out the fragrance of that frankincense. You know the thurible we have over here? No, here it's here in Australia it's very funny. We have the coal that's nice and ready-made for us. In India, you make that coal. And you keep it over here, you put 2 pieces of coal inside. If you put too much of frankincense inside it, that coal will die out, because there's not enough of glow. If there's no enough glow within our hearts, what's the use of all that frankincense? It'll just be empty. So we pray during this evening's prayer, as well as we offer our frankincense to the Lord, our prayer, the purity of our prayer that comes from a relationship. Let that be our offertory to God today.